And basically in I walked as Lucas Vigilante, who wasn't a coach, and 3 hours later I walked out as Lucas Vigilante, who believed he could be a coach.
This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Welcome to the episode, everyone. So I'm joined today by Lucas Vigilante. He is a business coach with ActionCoach. He's got an awesome story I can't wait to delve into. Lucas, welcome to the podcast.
Well, very nice to be here. What can I say?
Oh, nice. Great. It's great. So talk to us first, Lucas, for people who don't know you, they may know nothing about you. Just what brought you into business coaching? What's your kind of backstory?
Okay, that's a great question. I would suspect that no one would know me who's actually going to be out there watching this, because I'm quite low profile, but obviously raising the profile being on your wonderful podcast. What can I say? In terms of backstory, I'm involved in business most of my life, really. And some friends and I started a telecommunications company. It was actually started by a particular individual, and then a few of us joined him in a semi-detached house in Romford in Essex back in about 1991. And that sort of grew and grew and grew and morphed into other things, but always stayed in the world of telecommunications, and ended up going through 4 venture capital backed management buyouts, and then a flotation on the AIM market in London, and then a delisting, and then a trade sale. So it was quite an exciting business journey. And I thought that happened to every business. You know, one guy starts selling answer machines, as it was then, out of the boot of a car, and it ends up with 135 people and, tens of millions in turnover and profit, and a listing, and then a delisting, and then a trade sale. It turns out that doesn't happen to everyone.
No.
But it was a brilliant experience, and I actually worked really for the type of person that I now coach. So for 20 years, you could argue I had an amazing apprenticeship working for a guy called Richard Thompson, who is the absolute archetypal entrepreneur. A man who could take nothing and turn it into a pound, and then could take that pound and turn it into 10. And obviously he could do that, but by adding a lot more zeros onto the end of that. So it was really an incredible period of time. And it involved lots and lots of decisions that I was lucky to be privy to, which meant that when it came to coaching business owners, I'd seen a lot of what they were going through before. Yeah. So that's really that's the backstory.
The backstory, yeah. And I love that, how I always say you can't learn this stuff in a classroom. You can't just do a degree and then go, oh, well, that qualifies me to do this role. I think there's so much you learn through experience, lived experience, whether it's doing it, observing it, the experience, like you said, it was like a lived apprenticeship that you went through in that business, and the people that you saw and connected with during that time. What was the turning point for you? So obviously you sold that business, so that kind of came to its natural end. How did you decide where to go next?
Well, actually at that point the business was still in existence at the point that I stepped out of it, and then I had a few years. We just had some children. Well, had our eldest daughter had just been born, and I spent a couple of years at home with my eldest daughter, and pushing a pram around and having an amazing time, and really being there for all those magical moments that, if anyone's a parent who's listening, that you'll obviously be aware of. And then we had another daughter, and then my wife realised that I was indoors a bit too often. So she said, well, isn't there something else that you might want to do? And that's when I sort of happened upon business coaching. I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And I loved the philosophy of the organisation that I ended up becoming attached to and have been with now for the past 15 years, which is ActionCoach. The founder of ActionCoach was almost a blueprint of Richard Thompson, the guy who founded and then ran the telecommunications business. All of the attributes were pretty much the same. It's like, wow, okay, that's interesting. He's created this and he's turned it into a global enterprise. That looks like something that would be worth being part of. And from that moment, I never really looked back. It was tough to start off with
Yeah.
because of the mainly my view of myself rather than anything else. It was very difficult when people started calling me a coach, and I had a few clients that wanted to call me that from the moment I started working with them. It's like, coach this, coach that, and it used to make me cringe a little bit because I was thinking, well, surely I can't be a coach just yet. But when I look back, the mere fact I was asking questions of them that no one else had ever asked them did make me
Yeah.
a coach.
That
But
is
it took
coaching.
me a while to sort of to align myself with that identity, and then
Yeah.
the rest, of the time after that was a bit of a breeze, really, because I thought, well, actually, it is just as straightforward as asking questions about things I know quite a lot about anyway.
What was it? So other than brown sugars, perhaps, or like identifying with the founder and going, okay, I understand this kind of person and this inspires me, and I want to be part of this. Were you actively seeking a franchise? Were you like, I want to get into a franchise, or did you stumble across it? Like, how did it come about?
I suppose I sort of stumbled upon it. It wasn't something that I was, overly familiar with. The concept of business
Yeah.
coaching. We'd had several advisors over a period of years in the telecommunications business, and I'd always enjoyed being in sessions with them when we were working things through and trying to come up with ideas that gave us a competitive advantage. So I wasn't totally unfamiliar with it. The thing I really liked about it was being part of something that was way bigger than just me.
Yeah.
But my real prerequisite was something that could be done absolutely on my doorstep. I really didn't want to be two young children. I didn't want to be traveling the length and breadth of the country or over into Europe, as I'd previously done when we were growing that telecoms operation. I wanted to be on my own doorstep. So I spent absolutely ages in due diligence asking to speak to people all over the world who were involved in ActionCoach to be certain that it was something you could do on your doorstep, and they weren't kidding me.
Yeah.
And it turned out that it was true. You could. Obviously, the pandemic changed everything because
Yeah.
it became something you had to do from the confines of your own office or home anyway. And I've never really looked back since then. So I
Yeah.
don't go out and see any clients anymore. It's all
Yeah.
in the virtual world.
That period forced everyone to jump forward in time and utilize that technology, didn't it, that only perhaps then some people did prior to that. But I was going to ask you then about the franchise model. When you said about being in due diligence and you were talking to lots of action coaches all over the world, what kind of I'm genuinely curious what kind of response you got. Like, was everybody just raving about it? Were some people going, oh no, it's hard? Like, how was that for you?
Well,
And how did that test your decision making?
that's a interesting sort of area to explore because obviously when you approach, I would imagine when you approach a franchisor and you say, yeah, I'm really interested in what you're doing. Doesn't matter what it is, I'm really interested in what you're doing, but I'd really like to speak to some people that do it.
Yeah.
So some of your franchisees,
Yeah.
the chances are you're going to get a list of people
Yeah.
that I would imagine are doing okay or
Yeah.
doing quite well. I went way beyond that. I was just almost doorstepping people that I knew were attached to Action Coach that they would never give me the names of, not because they didn't want to, but because they weren't really in my area and maybe they were just too new to Action Coach. I wanted to speak to as many as I could. And I found out that just like any organisation, you can have people that are, very successful and a long way ahead in their journey. And you can have people that are just starting out or are maybe floundering a little bit. And, I floundered for about 3 years. And that was because I really, as I mentioned to you, couldn't, attach myself to this identity of being a coach. It was nothing to do with knowing about business. I knew about business, but it was being a coach that was the challenge for me, and that stalled me for about 3 years. So I wanted to make sure I'd spoken to everyone, whether they were doing good, bad, or indifferent. Maybe even some people that had been in and now had decided they weren't going to renew their license, and tell me a little bit about that. What happened there?
Yeah.
And I'd really advise anyone who's checking out a franchise to do that, because you obviously a franchisee is going to be telling you like it is.
Yeah.
A franchisor is probably going to be giving you the sales pitch. I must say though, Action Coach are really honest about that, and they they make it quite clear up front that it's not a walk in the park. It's like you're going to have to put some real effort in. First 24 months are going to be quite tough for you, but get through that. And actually what's on the other side is so rosy.
Yeah.
By the time you get there, you probably wouldn't even believe that was possible.
And I think that's really important, because I think franchise is, some people don't even know what it is, to be honest. I find that all the time. People are like, what's a franchise? What does that mean? Is that like McDonald's? But I think the fact that it is a franchise, and the blueprint, if you like, or the framework or the formula has been tested, and it's kind of like, yeah, follow this, it works. You still have to do the work, and it isn't just handed on a silver platter, and it's not just like open the box and it just magically happens. And I think, like you said, in any business, you've got the probably 20% high performers, 20% floundering, and you've got your 60% in the middle average, and I think you probably see that in most businesses. And being able to then identify with, if this 20%, why are they there at the lower end? How much are they doing? How much work are they putting in? And what you identify with, and not being then, I guess, afraid to go, okay, I now know what not to do, and I know what's possible. Where do I fit? And making those sort of decisions.
That view of here are the things you need to do to be a success, that's usually quite clear. I would say, not that I've looked at lots of franchises, but whenever I've brushed up against them, the what to do is usually really well laid out. It's a franchise for a reason. It's a business in a box. It's the McDonald's speedy service system. What did Ray Kroc see when he walked into McDonald's? He saw a license to print money. He realized that they had a choreographed system that was replicable, not just all across America, but across the whole world. The McDonald brothers didn't see that, although they created it, but it took Ray Kroc to recognize that. So I think the doing bit is usually, in all franchises, probably quite clear. There'll be checklists, there'll be a process, there'll be a way to market, the franchise, to sell the product or service, to operationally deliver it, to bill for it, and there'll be an idea of the scale of resource in terms of team that you'll need to make that happen. Therefore, how much you'd need to invest to have a successful sell of that franchise unit. That bit is usually really well laid out. The bit that is not so obvious is, who do you actually need to be as a person, and to what point of you do you need to have evolved to actually be able to apply yourself to doing all those things. So, in ActionCoach, we have a really great formula, which actually doesn't come from ActionCoach. It first appears in the Bible, and it's, if you want to have something, you've got to be usually a certain type of person, and you've got to do a number of things. So be times do equals have. Franchises are really good at the do, and they're really good at articulating the have. It's like, this is what you'll have. It's to the right of the equal sign. This is what you'll have if you do all this stuff. The bit that they need to maybe invest a little more time in is, here's actually who you need to be. Who do you need to be? Well, you need to be someone who's really disciplined. You need to be somewhat internally motivated. We're not going to be able to motivate you. What we've got might be able to inspire you. Motivation tends to be more of an internal thing. Inspiration can be, acquired from the outside. It's like, well, I've got this brilliant franchise system. Look at the results some people are getting. I'm inspired now to be this sort of person. So B times do equals have can come alive. If there's a 0 in that B, if you've substituted numbers, and there's a 10 in the do, it doesn't matter. There could be 100 in the do. The have is going to be 0. Anything multiplied by 0 is a 0. So you've got to be 1 or better in the who I am, as attached to this franchise opportunity, whatever it is, whichever franchise. And I think that can be missed sometimes. So I always draw people's attention to that. How much do you need to evolve as an individual in order to get the most out of this opportunity? Now to get franchises, that's the same in life as it is in business. And whether anyone knows about B times do equals have or not is almost immaterial, because it exists. It is what is happening. It is a generalized principle of life. It's like, if I want to have these results, I've got to do these things, and I need to be this sort of person. Even if you don't know about that, if you've got an idea of what you want to have, you're probably getting a bit clearer about the things you need to do, and you're probably having to adjust your personality and some of your, own personal attributes in order to be able to do those things in a more effective fashion to get more of what you want. So B times do equals have is out there. And that's why, the Bible, probably the oldest, and whether you're religious or not, it doesn't matter. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, self-help book out there. Yeah. It's got, two types of stories. It's got examples and it's got warnings. Do what these people did, and you'll end up, getting these results. And if they're bad results, you may not want to do that. They're the warnings. Do what these people did and get these results, and they're good results. They're the examples.
How do you think I really like that. And with the doing, do is usually around skill, and, you can learn how to do the do better. Do you think the B thing is entirely learnable? Or do you think some of it is fundamental personality? So whether that's franchise or whether it's your own business, like whatever it is, do you think you can develop the being, or do you think there are some people that are just not cut out to be in business? Brutal question, but
how much of this stuff do you know when you're born? I mean, it's all learnable. How much do you want to learn it?
It's willingness, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great author, Gino Wickman, who wrote a book called Traction, and in it he has a little acronym which is part of his overall traction process called GWC: get it, want it, and capacity to do it. So, does someone get it? Do they really understand, what the essence of an opportunity is? Okay, then maybe they do. Go to the sea. Do they have the capacity to do it? Okay, they may be missing a few skills, but are they how learnable are those skills? If they practice them, could they develop them? A mate of mine often says you tend not to get better at something by doing less of it. So if you did more of it, it's like, what would happen? But the W is, do you really want it? It's like, how much do you want it? People that tend to progress and are on a general sort of upward trajectory in life, if they really want something, they're more than likely to find a way to get it. And that might be employing someone who's got the skills. Going back to your point, is it learnable? Well, yeah, it probably is, in my very, very humble opinion. Though if I don't want to learn it, is there somebody out there who's already, naturally disposed to that? So, is there someone who's already naturally disposed to paying tremendous attention to detail? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there is. Okay, well, what would it take to employ someone like that? Is there someone who's naturally disposed to getting on with people and, having a happy and pleasant demeanour? So they're like a magnet and people are drawn to them. And, are they going to be good at business development or am I? Or they might be better at that. Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So could I employ someone like that? So, winners tend to find a way.
Yeah, find a way and be resourceful, even if it's not you. Yeah, because I see this with sales a lot. So business owners that go into a business to do a thing that they love, that they're passionate about. So whether that is a coaching business or a bricks and mortar business or whatever it might be, they love the thing. But then when it comes to sales, marketing, getting clients, there's a sticking point. And it's like, well, I can deliver amazingly, but I have a hard time consistently bringing on clients. So I guess sometimes that can be, like you say, they're not charismatically good at the connection and at the nurture and at the conversation. But like you say, being resourceful enough to either find somebody that is, or a system or a process, because that's where I guess there are the nuances of each business owner, right?
I think that idea of a system or a process, often if you identify something that you want, it automatically dictates how you basically invest your time. I want that, so I've got to do things that help me get that.
Yeah.
If I haven't got any objective, if there's no goal that I've set, it's like I can do anything with time. It doesn't matter. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just sort of, milling around. I might be really enjoying myself. And by the way, I'm not passing any judgment on anyone who does that, because there are periods of my life when I've done that. It's just like, not going to set any goals, just going to have a couple of years not doing anything, not really paying any attention, not really heading anywhere. But the moment you set an objective, obviously it begins to push you in a certain direction. And then going back to your point about a system or process, which I think is really interesting, at that point, a really smart question to ask is, what would be a winning daily routine? It's like, what does a day in the life of someone that ends up with that as a result? It might be, it doesn't have to be a monetary thing. It might be someone who gets a lot of free time. It's okay. What would they have created to get a lot of free time? It's like, what would the actual day in the life of that person look like? What would they be doing? What are their winning routines? When people get really clear on what they want, it's a lot easier to construct a day. And let's face it, if you can't plan there's no point in trying to plan a life if you can't plan a year. And if you can't plan a year, you need to plan a month. And if you can't plan a month, it's like you need to plan a week, plan a day, plan an hour. It's like, okay, what does a winning hour look like? How would I invest that hour so at the end of it, I had a result? And that bit about a process, there's always an equal sign. To the right of it is the result, and to the left of it are the actual contributing elements that produce the result. And they may be multiplied together, they may be divided, they may be added together, it may be a mixture of those things, there may be an incredibly complex equation there, but there will be things to the left of the equal sign, and they will, when pulled together, produce a result. And so that bit of our process is like, if you're clear about what you want, whether it's in business or in life, it's like, well, what's the winning process that I need to put in? What does my day look like to make that happen?
Yeah. And so if it equals X number of clients, what's the formula that goes before that equal sign, as you say? And it isn't just fumbling around, is it? It's working out what it is so that you can repeat that.
Well, if someone wants clients, well, obviously to get clients, a client is an outcome. So, if you want a 1 to the right of the equal sign and you want that every day, you're probably going to need to look at how many leads you get coming through, and you're probably going to need to look at the rate at which you convert them. So let's say we get 10 leads and we convert at a rate of 10%. At the end of the day, we get 1 client. It's like we've got a conversion rate of 10%. Get 9 leads in and we convert a rate of 10%. What do we get? Well, we don't get 1, we get 9, we get 0.9. It's like, we're not going to get exactly what we're looking for. So there's going to be a minimum effective dose that you're going to have to do. And and then when you go back to your point about, well, can you learn these things? Well, can you learn to be better at converting leads that come into a business? Yeah, of course you can. Can you break that down? Yeah, of course you can. If you had a conversion rate of 10%, put that to the right of the equal sign, and then to the left of it, what are the things that contribute to your conversion rate? Have you got, if it's conversion, have you got sales scripts? Have you got sales training? These things would be to the left of the equal sign.
Yeah. And then I guess where I was talking about personality types, it's then playing to your strengths and knowing what style of that suits you and who you attract to work with. Because I think a lot of people that listen to this will be solopreneurs, solo business owners, one-man bands that would be like, okay, I've started this, but now I'm doing the delivery, but I've also got to do the marketing and the sales and the conversions and so on. And they might excel in one area and struggle in another. And so it's knowing, how to do well in that area. Sort of going back to when you started, would you say like you had areas you were strongest in, you knew business, you'd been in business, but how did you wear all the hats, I guess is what I'm saying, in order to then grow what you've grown today?
I think one of the things that is important to remember is that you're probably going to be naturally disposed to if it's business, for example, there'll be something you'll be naturally disposed to. So marketing and selling, I was naturally disposed to that. That's what I did in the telecommunications business. It's like I was marketing and I was selling, marketing director and sales director at different times. And so that was my thing. So marketing and selling, not difficult. Operational delivery, didn't really have any involvement in that because we had specialists that were involved in operational delivery. So I think how do you wear all those hats? Well, if you're just a solopreneur, you just need to be good enough to get the result you require in the marketing, and then good enough to get the result you require at selling, good enough to deliver something that someone's prepared to pay for. So that's operational delivery. And then, good enough to get an invoice out the door. That's finance. So I think, it is possible to learn those things and to be good enough. But if you want to go beyond being good enough, then you probably need to think a bit more like, funny enough, Brad Sugar's brilliant example, the way he started ActionCoach. So he started in the back bedroom of his mum and dad's house in Brisbane in Australia. And it wasn't long before it became, quite a thriving enterprise. But Brad knew that it needed to be a proper business. It was never just going to be him. It was going to be something that bestraddled the world. His overarching view was world abundance through business re-education worldwide. It wasn't just in Australia or just in, Brisbane where he lived. So the first office he got, he put 5 desks into it. And what he basically did was on Monday, sat at the marketing desk, made loads of calls, but he kept a record of what he was doing, creating a checklist for the marketeer. On Tuesday, he sat in the selling desk, and Tuesday was the day that he was doing all the selling and making sure that they were converting some clients. On Wednesday, what did he do? Operational delivery. He actually sat on the desk that was the coaching desk, and he coached clients, all on the telephone. This is 1993, so pre-internet. So he's doing that on the telephone. On Thursday, what's he doing? Thursday, he's sending out invoices. He's billing people. He's doing the finance director's job. And on Friday, what's he doing? Sitting at the HR desk, trying to recruit someone to sit on those desks on the other days of the week. Who's the first person he employs? A guy called Steve Leach. Which desk does he sit on? The operational desk. He's the coach now. Steve's given 38 clients and a schedule of telephone calls. He's doing that while Brad's sitting back on the marketing desk, back on the sales desk, bypassing the coaching desk, sitting on the finance desk, sitting back on the HR desk and recruiting again. And from that, a global enterprise is born.
Yeah.
That's starting with the end in mind. That is, this is going to be big. This is going to be global. This is going to be a proper business. And this is how I need to think in order for it to be a proper business. Not everyone's like that. So that's, one really, it's a living, breathing example of how to grow a global enterprise. Can think of it as a global enterprise when it's literally just you. But the other thing you said that I think is really important and worthy of some significant note is this idea of an individual's identity. It was William James back in the late 1900s who said people tend to become what they tell themselves they are. So people tend to become what they tell themselves they are. What is it you're telling yourself you are? I'm someone who's struggling. I'm someone who's just running this on my own, or I'm, a global business leader and I'm presiding over a significant business. And to give you a real example, there's a client of mine who for many years, if you met her, she would have introduced herself as a doctor. And she is a doctor, and she's a really eminent doctor as well, and in tremendous demand. But if you met her now, she would introduce herself as the owner of several medical businesses. The point at which she switched her identity from I'm a doctor to the owner of several medical businesses, her business empire, and it is an empire, absolutely exploded and has gone off the scale in terms of growth now. She was holding it back because she didn't carry the identity that Brad Sugars was carrying when he was sitting at home saying this is a global enterprise. The moment she switched, she was unstoppable. Absolutely outstanding entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's so true. The things that we kind of whisper to ourselves, our brain hears, our body hears, and we live into that energy, don't we? And not in an identity. It's massive. And I think, I know a lot of women who start businesses, sometimes on the other side of having kids, looking for something to get their brain back into, and it comes from a passion. But if the identity is, I'm just a mum, and this is just a little pocket money business, then so it will be, and that's how it will stay. But if you want the growth and a solid business, you've got to think like a business owner and take the identity of a business owner.
Which is you're absolutely true. And that word you used there, you've got to want it. There's absolutely no problem with having a business that just pays the bills, or just is a pocket money business, or is a side hustle. Who's judging you? No
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
A friend of mine often says, you want to watch out in those scenarios where you're looking at what other people are doing, because the famous phrase is comparison's the thief of all joy. It's like,
Mm,
if I'm looking at what they're doing and I'm not doing as well as that, then I'm feeling bad about myself.
yeah.
I'd forget that. Stephen Bartlett, one of the dragons, said the best thing to do is compare yourself to yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
this is where I started. This is where I am now. This is where I'm going. What do I need to do to get to where I'm going? How do I need to evolve? I think that's,
Mm,
that's the important thing, rather than thinking, well, this is going nowhere. It's really small. I live with 3 females, 2 daughters and a wife. They've all been encouraged to have big dreams, to, think about who they really want to become. And they're all, on the way to becoming that. And
yeah.
they seem to be doing that with a smile on their face. It could have
Yeah.
been so different.
Yeah.
Discouraged it and
Yeah.
said, don't be crazy. You're never going to be able to do that. It's like, but if people become what they tell themselves they are, they hear that too many times. That's a problem. So another thing for, entrepreneurs to maybe think about, but just people in general, is, who's actually encouraging you? Who are your radiators? A great
Mm,
friend of mine, he's not with us anymore, a guy called Kent Rose, had some brilliant phrases. One of them is, in life, watch out for the drains and radiators. He said, stick with the radiators, avoid the drains. They suck
mm.
the life out of you.
Simple,
Yeah,
but so
so
true.
it's like, can you surround yourself with the right people? Can you put yourself in an environment that gives you a better chance of success? Is that possible? If it is
Mm,
possible, where are you likely to find it? What
mm,
might you need to adjust in your life to get more of what you want? And I'm not pretending it's easy, and I recognize that, you know everyone's starting point is different, but the important thing is, what is your starting point?
mm,
And from where do you want to travel? It's like,
mm,
I want to travel from there, and I want to get to there. Okay, well, what are some of the points I might need to pass through? They become the objectives. They're at the right of the equal sign. It's okay.
yeah,
Well, what do I need to do to get there? Well, I need to do this, 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 and this. Might need to learn a bit more. Might need to, develop a new skill. Might need to learn a
yeah,
foreign language. Might need to, I don't know what it'll be, but
mm,
it'll be based on where you want to get to, and
mm,
then enjoying what you're doing while you're doing it, while you're pursuing something else that you want. It's like, how do you enjoy today while
mm.
you're charging after tomorrow? That seems to be quite important. And missing that enjoyment in today, I've not seen that create a great deal of fulfillment. It's like, how do I enjoy now whilst still having my eye on something in the future?
Yeah. Yeah. And just like talk to me a bit about the ownership side of that, because once we look at like, okay, that's who I want to be. That's who I need to be to get where I want to go. And to do that, I want to surround myself by this kind of energy, these kinds of people, that not to compare myself to, but to be inspired by and held up by, cheered on by, whatever it might be. But we have to own that, right? And I think, so whether in your situation as a franchisee, you don't expect your franchisor to do that for you, or if you're not in a franchise, like, it's not, no one's going to do it for you. It doesn't. You're a coach. You don't do it for your clients. You're there to support them, ask the right questions.
Yeah. Well, sometimes not the right questions. Sometimes the wrong questions. But yeah, that is very true. It's not about, it's not really just about doing stuff. It is about evolving a little bit, just wanting to be just a little bit better. I
Mm,
mean, someone like a Brad Sugars, he's probably forgot today. Whatever he's forgotten today is more than I'll probably ever know about business. I mean, he's a walking encyclopedia of business. There's quite a few people I know like that. They're not all in business, but
mm,
they just know so much stuff. But you got to obviously apply it. It's not
yeah.
so, if you're not applying what you know,
Mm.
there's not really much point in knowing it, frankly.
But I definitely see people going, well, I'm doing that and I'm ticking the boxes, but I'm still stuck. And then looking externally for those answers. I know from my own coaching work I've done, I've had people almost looking at me like, so tell me, what else have you got? And it's like, oh, hold on, let me just pull another thing out of my back pocket. It's like, that's not the role of a coach. And I think as a business owner, it's not just taking ownership of doing the things that you need to do. That becoming piece that we talked about and the identity, only you can control that and do the self-work, right? With obviously potentially some guidance or some hints in the right direction. But it's that sort of ownership piece, I think, that is like
Well, yeah, if you talk about ownership. I mean, the way we sort of describe ownership is, effectively owning your own ship. It's like so you're basically charting your own course, but the course you're charting is usually in the direction of your objectives, your goals, your dreams. Call them what you will. There are some clients I work with who don't like the word dream, so we'd never use it. It's like it's just an objective. It's like, point we're going to pass through. So yeah, recognizing that I think that is important. But to own something, you've got to want to own it.
Yeah.
So, and you've got to take personal responsibility for it. And it does appear, and it's only just an observation, you can sort of live by accident or by design. By design would be I've got a purpose in life. I've got a direction of travel. I've got something I want to achieve. When I'm gone, maybe I'd like people to, reflect on my life as having achieved these things and having left this legacy. Whereas by accident is I'll just take it as it comes. And by the way, who am I to say which is right or wrong? I would suggest neither is. It's just like some people are more disposed to set an objective, some people are more disposed to floating around. But going back to your point about if you want to progress to something, which I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but if you want to progress towards something, if what you've got right now at this very moment in time is everything you've ever wanted, change nothing. Keep running your daily routine, keep doing what you're doing, because guess what? You'll get more of what you've already got.
Mm-hmm.
If what you've got today is not exactly what you want, you've probably got to ask yourself, if I want that outcome to change, I'm probably going to have to change something.
Mm-hmm. Don't keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, old Einstein said it, didn't he? The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Yeah, well, some people can, and again, it's not a judgment, it's an observation. Some people can photocopy their day. I don't use Facebook really, other than for major events. If someone in the family passed away, I want to let people know about that, or if something monumental happened, or I was somewhere really incredible. But if you looked at my feed, you'll see there's hardly any posts on it. Why is that? Because I realised after I'd used it for about 5 years that actually there was quite a pattern to my life, and what I was really doing was just repeating the same old posts. Mm-hmm. It's like I wasn't changing anything. I was still going to great places, still seeing great things, doing them at roughly the same time of year, usually doing something in February, usually doing something in, June, usually doing something in October, definitely doing something at Christmas, doing something. It's like, who really wants to see that?
Yeah.
Like, so I've got thousands, tens of thousands of photographs of everything I do on a daily basis. Nearly everything I do, I take a picture of. So I can go back and I can relive those moments and they come up on my Google Photos feed. But I don't need to put them out there for everyone else to see, purely because I'm just repeating the same old stuff. So I'm photocopying part of my life. But you know what? That bit of my life, I'm really happy with. I don't really want to change anything there. That's brilliant. And I'm going to keep doing that because my family think that's brilliant as well. And they love going to those places. They love doing those things. They love having those experiences and meeting those people. Any area in my life where the result is not what I'm looking for, I've got to put it under closer scrutiny. I've got to ask myself, what am I tolerating there that really I shouldn't be tolerating? What should I change?
Yeah. And change is hard. It can be. What would you say have been the challenging points for you? So I know there was a point where you were like, this is hard, this is tough. And, people, I think, in business often go through the whole or contemplating quitting, and what gets you to push through, or in your experience, what has made you go, I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep going?
In the first 3 years of coaching entrepreneurs with ActionCoach, it was actually a coaching session I had with a guy called Peter Balker. Peter was incredibly generous with his time. We were together for about 3 hours, and basically in I walked as Lucas Vigilante, who wasn't a coach, and 3 hours later I walked out as Lucas Vigilante, who believed he could be a coach. What did Pete do during that time? Basically asked me a lot of tough questions, but more importantly, gave me an understanding of what he did on a daily basis and how many different hats he was wearing. He was a chairman, he was a sales director, he was a coach, he was a mentor, he was a friend, he was, he wrote them all up on a flip chart. And I thought, well, I'm doing all those things. And then he wrote, well, that's the role of a coach. It's like, I'm prepared to take those hats off and put those hats on. So that was a real sort of turning point for me. And the other thing was I was very aware of confirmation bias, in that it's easy to find evidence to support a belief you have. If I believed it was difficult, it was easy to find evidence that this was going to be difficult. At that point, I walked out and I thought, well, actually, maybe this is easier than I thought. And guess what? I started to find a lot more evidence to support that belief, which turned into, an exciting and fulfilling journey.
Which I think is such a massive lesson. Like you say, confirmation bias is huge. You will find that evidence. So be careful what you look for, right? look for the evidence for the thing that you really want, not confirmation that you can't have it, it's too tough, it's not for you, unless you really don't want it. But if you really, really want it, look, yeah.
Well, you will find evidence to support both sides of the argument. And it depends what I remember going back to my pal Kent Rhodes, who was one of the top action coaches in the world. When I said, what made you actually become an action coach, Ken? Because he was one of the first people I spoke to. He was just a guy I called out the blue, as we mentioned earlier in this discussion, to ask about action coach. And he said, well, frankly, Lucas, I was looking for reasons to do it, not to do it.
Yeah.
So all I saw were those things. It's like, yeah, that's interesting. I get that. I was looking for reasons to do it. I like the look of it. I like the ethos of the organisation. I like the position of the leader. I liked all the people that I met. I thought, well, what's not to like about this?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you want something enough, you are blinkered to the opposing thought. You just become blinkered. I've even done that with silly, basic, like personal decisions. Like, I want that so much that I'm not going to speak to anybody that would talk me out of it, because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear their point of view, because I know I want it and I'm going after it no matter what. Like, that does drive my husband crazy sometimes. But it's how you get what you want, by looking for all the reasons to go for it.
Yeah, and then logic and emotion. Obviously, you can be driven so much by emotion, but sometimes it pays to just sort of step back and say, okay, so let me, pause my excitement for a moment and let me just ask a few logical questions about this. And if the answers to the logical questions are positive, it's like, well, okay, maybe this is a good move. I often see these, decisions as being, I can't remember who said this to me years ago. I think I must have read it. But it was a brilliant way of looking at things. There's 3 types of decisions. There's a hat, a haircut, and a tattoo. It's like reasons to do things. It's like a hat. Well, I can put one on, take it off, put one on, take it off. If there's no consequence to the hat decision, it's like I can change that easily. Haircut, if it's not a good one, I'm going to have to probably wait a month until it grows out and I get another one and it's maybe looks a bit better. But a tattoo, I'd give some serious thought to that. I'd be sucking the emotion out of the debate around a tattoo decision, because that's irreversible. I'd want to know for sure I was making the right choice, and I'd have explored all avenues, and I encourage clients to explore all avenues, and sleep on it before they make a tattoo decision.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to remember, actually, and asking yourself, like, what kind of decision is it? Is it a haircut or a tattoo type decision? Yeah. So just before we wrap up, then, I just want to ask you, because you're uniquely positioned to answer this one as somebody in the franchise world, or was there anything in particular that attracted you to franchising specifically, as opposed to starting another business yourself? Or, what are the things about the franchise model that you love? You said about being part of something bigger than just you. Is it, yeah.
Yeah, it's that, and knowing that there's a system that's replicable and has created success. But it was about being part of something. For me, it was just being part of something that was bigger, and also looking at something like business coaching and asking myself, well, how long would it take me to develop the systems that they showed me they had? It's like, okay, I mean, that's, he's been doing that since 1993, and it's 2010 when I looked at that. So he's been doing all those 17 years or whatever it is up until that point. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to condense 17 years of learning and knowledge and effort into the next year to develop my own. That looks like it's a good investment. And then, and going back to your point about not giving up on something, I'd love to have a wonderfully illuminating story about what really caused me to keep going in Action Coach. But frankly, it was no more than I'm never going to have invested that amount of money in this and not get a return on it. That was it.
Yeah.
I just would not allow that to happen.
Yeah. Your skin in the game, right? There's skin in the game, and clearly something that you had a passion about anyway, because you had the experience there. And
well, often if you're looking for a franchise, it's probably a good idea to ask yourself, what's the sort of essence of me as an individual, and how much of that exists in the franchises I'm looking at. So, if you did a little Venn diagram, it's like there's the franchise and there's the essence of me. If those two circles don't intersect, then that's probably the wrong opportunity. So when I put Action Coach across, me dealing with people, tick, brilliant. It's involved in business, tick. It's bigger than one person, tick. Oh, okay, that's great. That looks like it'd be a really good opportunity. So it's quite good to, I think, probably assess it in that way. And for anyone who's listening, don't be drawn in by being told something is like it appears to be. Try and experience it. Try and speak to people that will go and participate in events to really get a feel for the culture of the organisation. Because if you're mismatched to the culture, things are probably going to be pretty uncomfortable.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's a responsibility on both parts, really, franchisor and franchisee. It's like you need to know if you're a good fit, but it's also franchisor's role to do their best as well to identify if somebody is a good culture fit and likely to do well in that business. So
I think that's spot on. And if anyone's thinking of assessing franchises or thinking about making some adjustments or in their life or aiming for bigger objectives, it pays to sit down with a sheet of paper and to sketch these things out and ask yourself, in an ideal world, what do I want in 3 years time, what do I want things to look like, and how might participating in this franchise achieve that? How might adjusting my life or evolving some of the things that I do in specific ways, how would that help me achieve think on paper, basically. Jim Rohn said it best. He's a great American business philosopher. Think on paper. It's like you can look at that stuff, tear it up, start again. But by the end of the evening, what have you got? Well, the essence of what I really want. And if that's what I really want, that's all to the right of the equals sign. All I've got to do now is work out who I need to be and what I need to do to get it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What a brilliant message to end on. I think that was absolutely spot on. Honestly, Lucas, thank you so much for coming and joining us for this conversation today. We'll put a note in the show notes about who you are and where people can find you. Not on Facebook. We know that's not where you hang out.
You will find me there, but you won't see much.
Much.
That's for sure.
But we will put the notes in there. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you on topics that are really dear to my heart, from the coaching, the mindset, business, and also the franchise element as well, because that's my other business. So it's very interesting for me to have this conversation, and I hope it's helped our listeners as well and inspired some people. Thank you so very much.
Absolute pleasure, Lucy. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright, because you were born to be brilliant.